it's very much a place which I think always fitted in that time of the year. There was a real relaxation.
The royal family is no stranger to drama, but this time it feels different. Reports claim that Princess Anne has taken serious action against Laura Lopes on an alleged trespassing incident at Balmoral Castle, one of the most private royal estates. Lines may have been crossed, and tensions are rising fast. But how did something this serious happen within the royal family? Let's find out. Standing behind the crown. Who is Laura Lopes? There are people who live their entire lives inside the orbit of great power without ever seeking any of it for themselves. Laura Lopes is one of those people. She is Queen Camilla's only daughter, the stepdaughter of King Charles III, and the stepsister of the future King of England. And yet, most people would struggle to pick her out of a crowd. She has spent decades carefully staying out of the spotlight, building a life far from the cameras and ceremonies that define the world her mother now leads. But that careful distance has never meant she was removed from the drama. Laura Rose. Parker Bowles was born on the 1st of January 1978, the second child of Camilla and her then husband, retired British Army officer Andrew Parker Bowles. She grew up at Bolehide Manor, a grand 8-bedroom country estate in Wiltshire, surrounded by swimming pools, tennis courts, and 70 acres of rolling English countryside. It was a privileged and comfortable childhood by any measure, but underneath that comfort was a family quietly coming apart at the seams, pulled in different directions by forces far bigger than any of them could control. From an early age, Laura was aware that her family was not like others. The shadow of then Prince Charles loomed large over her childhood home. Even before the world found out what was really going on between Charles and her mother, Laura could sense the tension. There were phone calls that came too often, visits that felt strange, and a father who grew increasingly distant. As a little girl, she was reportedly so frustrated by Charles's persistent contact with her mother that she would pick up the phone and shout at him to leave their family alone. That kind of childhood leaves marks that no amount of privilege can erase. Laura was sent to St. Mary's Shaftesbury, a Catholic girls' boarding school in Dorset, with fees that ran to over £12,000 a year. She later went on to Oxford Brookes University, where she studied art history and marketing. After graduation, she completed an internship at the legendary Peggy Guggenheim Collection in Venice, one of the most respected modern art institutions in the world. She then returned to London and worked briefly as a motoring correspondent for Tatler magazine before finding her true calling back in the art world. Her career in the arts became the foundation of her identity outside the royal family. She managed the Space Gallery in the upmarket London neighborhood of Belgravia. Then, in 2005, the same year her mother married Charles, she co-founded 11 Fine Art, a gallery she went on to run as director for over a decade. Art gave her a world that was entirely her own, a space where she was judged on her eye and her expertise rather than on who her mother had married. It was a deliberate and sensible choice made by a woman who understood exactly what kind of attention came with the family name. In 2006, Laura married Harry Lopes, a former Calvin Klein model who had since built a career as a chartered accountant. Harry comes from an aristocratic English family, a grandson of the second Baron Roberot, and set to inherit Naton Hall in Devon, as well as the Skelpick estate in the Scottish Highlands. The couple has 3 children together, a daughter named Eliza, and twin boys named Gus and Louis. Their daughter Eliza was chosen as a flower girl at Prince William and Kate Middleton's wedding in 2011. A subtle sign of just how close Laura's family had grown to the Windsors, despite all the history between them. That history was not always peaceful. For years, Laura and Prince William clashed badly over their parents' relationship. William blamed Camilla for the pain she had caused his mother, Princess Diana. Laura, fiercely protective of her own mother, pushed back hard. The fights between them were reportedly intense and personal. Both of them were children of broken homes, both carrying wounds from the same events, just from opposite sides. The fact that they eventually found a way past all of that says something about both of them, though it took years of gradual work to get there. What makes Laura Lopes so interesting is not the drama, but the choices she has made despite it. She had every reason to either lean into royal life for personal gain, or to walk away from it entirely in bitterness. She did neither. She kept showing up quietly, on her own terms. She attended royal events without seeking attention. She built a real career, she raised a family, and stayed loyal to her mother without turning that loyalty into a public performance. In a family where almost everyone eventually ends up at the center of some kind of storm, Laura had managed for a long time to remain calm. But calm in the royal family is rarely permanent. And for someone who has always existed on the edge of belonging without ever fully being let inside, it was perhaps only a matter of time before the boundaries that define that world became impossible to navigate without crossing one. The unexpected visit to Balmoral Castle sits in the heart of the Scottish Highlands, about 50 miles west of Aberdeen in the county of Aberdeenshire. It is surrounded by over 53,000 acres of land that stretch across moors, forests, and hills, all of it private property belonging to the Crown. The castle itself was purchased by Prince Albert in 1852 for Queen Victoria, who fell deeply in love with the Scottish landscape during an earlier visit. A new, larger castle was built on the estate and completed in 1856, and ever since, Balmoral has served as the royal family's cherished summer retreat, a place to escape the formality of London. The royal family typically travels to Balmoral in late summer, usually arriving in August and remaining through October. During this time, the estate becomes an intensely private sanctuary. Security is managed by a combination of the Metropolitan Police and Police Scotland, and access to the private grounds is strictly controlled. Unlike Windsor Castle or Buckingham Palace, which have very visible, in-your-face security measures, Balmoral operates on a different level. The security there is more embedded in the landscape, but still serious. The estate covers so much ground that perimeter management is a huge logistical operation all on its own. When the royal family is in residence, Balmoral closes entirely to the public. The castle is only open for visitors between April and July, when the family is away. Once the royals arrive for their summer stay, the gates come up, the staff changes, and the entire atmosphere shifts. This isn't a tourist destination during those months, it is a working private home, and the rules about who can enter are not flexible. Invitations to join the royal family at Balmoral are rare and carefully managed. Even senior members of the family do not simply turn up unannounced. Everything is properly arranged, cleared, and approved well in advance. Access to the estate is governed not just by royal preference, but by genuine legal protections. Under the Serious Organized Crime and Police Act of 2005, royal residences are designated protected sites. Entering a protected royal site without permission is not simply a civil matter. It carries the potential for criminal prosecution and, in serious cases, imprisonment of up to 6 months. These legal protections exist precisely because the security and privacy of the monarch and the royal family depend on firm, enforceable boundaries. Balmoral, as one of the most secluded and beloved of all royal properties, falls squarely within those protections. It is in this context that the presence of Laura Lopes on the estate without proper authorization becomes a serious matter. Laura is not a working royal. She carries no royal title and holds no official position within the institution. Despite being the stepdaughter of King Charles and the daughter of Queen Camilla, she occupies a curious in-between space. She is close enough to the family to attend Christmas services at Sandringham and major royal events, but she does not have the automatic access rights that come with being a formal working member of the royal household. Her presence at Balmoral would need to be cleared, invited, and known about by the right people. The circumstances that led to her being on the estate without full authorization involve a combination of family familiarity, a sense of personal entitlement that sometimes grows in people adjacent to great power, and a failure to follow the formal process required of even those closest to the crown. It is possible that Laura believed her connection to her mother was enough to justify her visit. It is possible she expected the matter to be handled gently as a family issue once it was discovered. What she did not fully account for was who else was at Balmoral at the time, and how seriously that person would take the breach. The summer period at Balmoral is one of the few times the royal family comes together in an informal but closely managed setting. The guest list is curated, the timetable is structured, who is expected, when they are arriving, and where they are staying, are all noted. An unexpected arrival, particularly by someone who does not hold official status within the household, stands out. Estate staff are trained to be observant because Balmoral's remoteness can actually make it more vulnerable than the more publicly visible royal homes. An unannounced visitor in 53,000 acres of Highland Estate is a security concern, regardless of who their mother is. When Laura's presence was discovered, the reaction from the person who found out was not what she would have hoped for. In most families, an unexpected visit from a close relative might result in a slightly awkward conversation and a cup of tea. In this family, with its rigid protocols and deep respect for the rules that hold the institution together, the reaction was something else entirely. And the person at the center of that reaction had absolutely no interest in brushing it under the carpet. The consequences of Princess Anne. Discovering the breach. Princess Anne has never been easy to ignore, and she has never tried to be. The only daughter of the late Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, she has built her reputation over more than 5 decades of royal life on a foundation of hard work, direct speech, and zero tolerance for anything that she considers a waste of time, a misuse of privilege, or a failure to respect the institution she has given her life to. She has carried out more official engagements than any other member of the royal family for years running. To say she has a strong sense of duty would be an understatement. Those who know Princess Anne will describe her as someone who does not distinguish between the rules that apply to other people and the rules that apply to those around her. She has long been known for holding everyone in her orbit to the same high standard she holds herself. She does not offer special treatment because of family connections, does not smooth things over to avoid discomfort, and does not accept excuses where clear expectations have been set. This trait has earned her both respect and a reputation for being someone who can be extremely difficult to deal with when she feels a line has been crossed. Those around her do not take that lightly. Anne was present at Balmoral when Laura Lopes arrived unannounced and without proper clearance on the estate. The fact that Anne found out about the breach before it was quietly handled by palace staff is significant. Balmoral during the royal family's summer stay is not a large public property where people can move unnoticed. It is a tightly managed private home, and anyone who walks those grounds without authorization creates an immediate alarm through the household. Staff report to senior members. Security is logged and tracked. Princess Anne, who takes the management and sanctity of royal spaces extremely seriously, was informed relatively quickly. Her reaction was instant and clear. People who have witnessed Anne in these kinds of moments describe a woman who does not raise her voice unnecessarily, but whose displeasure is conveyed with a kind of cold, quiet precision that is, in its own way, far more forceful than shouting. She did not treat Laura's presence as a family matter to be sordid over dinner. She treated it as what it legally and institutionally was, an unauthorized entry onto a protected royal site by someone who had no permission to be there. The distinction mattered deeply to her, and she made that clear to everyone around her. Part of what made Anne so furious was the implication behind Laura's arrival. To show up at Balmoral without going through the proper channels suggests a belief that family proximity is the same as institutional access. To Anne, these two things are entirely different. Being the daughter of the Queen does not mean walking onto a protected estate whenever one feels like it. Being the stepdaughter of the King is not a skeleton key to every royal property. Anne had spent her entire adult life demonstrating that even she, as the King's own sister, and one of the most senior working royals in the country, operates within the structures and protocols of the institution. Anne is also someone with a particular attachment to Balmoral. The estate holds deep personal meaning for her and for the wider royal family. It was where Queen Elizabeth spent her final days in September 2022. It was where Anne, more than any other royal, was present to support her mother in those last hours. The emotional weight of Balmoral for her is enormous. It is not simply a castle in the Scottish Highlands. It is one of the most sacred and private spaces in the life of the British monarchy. And she guards its integrity with a fierceness that goes beyond mere protocol. When she decided not to let the matter be resolved within the family, it sent a message that echoed through the palace. Those closest to her were not entirely surprised. Anne has a well-documented history of refusing to look the other way when rules are broken, even when doing so would be the easier and less disruptive option. She does not make exceptions, and she does not bend because someone's mother happens to be the Queen. If anything, that family connection made the breach feel more serious to her, not less. Rules mean nothing if the people closest to power are the ones who ignore them. The decision to push the matter further was not made carelessly or in a fit of anger. Anne is methodical and deliberate, not impulsive. She gathered her thoughts, considered the legal and institutional dimensions of what had occurred, and concluded that the right response was not a family conversation. It was a formal one. The process she set in motion from that point was not designed to punish, but to be clear, to make certain that everyone, inside the palace and beyond it, understood that Balmoral's protections were not ceremonial. They were real, and they applied to everyone, no matter who. The legal battle. When Princess Anne decided to pursue the matter formally, she was doing so within a well-established legal framework that most people outside the royal family would know very little about. Balmoral Castle is not simply private property in the ordinary sense of the term. It is a designated protected site under the Serious Organized Crime and Police Act of 2005, a piece of legislation that was specifically designed to give royal and premises an elevated level of legal protection. Entering such a site without permission is not just a civil wrong. It is a criminal matter that can result in prosecution and, upon conviction, a sentence of up to 6 months. This legal distinction is important because it changes the nature of what a formal response to Laura's trespass would look like. In most civil trespass cases in England and Wales, the primary remedy available to a landowner is to seek damages through the civil courts or to apply for an injunction preventing future entry. The burden is on the landowner to prove that harm was caused or that the trespass was intentional, and the outcomes tend to be financial rather than criminal. A civil action does not carry the same weight or the same public consequences as a criminal prosecution. However, where a protected royal site is involved, the law provides much stronger options. Princess Anne, as a senior member of the royal family, with a legitimate interest in the sanctity and security of Balmoral, had standing to set the formal process in motion. The Crown Prosecution Service, which handles all criminal prosecutions in England and Wales, would need to be involved in any criminal case. For matters relating directly to the safety and security of the royal family, the personal consent of the Attorney General is also typically required before charges can be brought. These steps signal the gravity with which such breaches are treated at the institutional level. The fact that formal legal steps were initiated placed the palace in an extremely uncomfortable position. King Charles and Queen Camilla found themselves stuck between two worlds. On one side was Princess Anne, one of the most respected and senior members of the royal family, insisting that the rules be followed and that her decision to pursue the matter through official channels be respected. On the other side was Camilla, whose own daughter was now the subject of a formal legal process, and whose position as queen made the situation both personally agonizing and politically delicate in equal measure. For Camilla, the situation carried a particular sting. She had spent years working carefully and patiently to build her place within the royal family, to move from the most unpopular figure in British public life to a widely respected queen consort. Her relationship with the Windsors had been rebuilt painstakingly, brick by brick, and her children had been gradually and quietly incorporated into the edges of royal life. A legal case involving her daughter and one of the most senior Windsors in the country threatened to undo much of that careful work in a very short time. King Charles, meanwhile, was placed in the position no monarch wants to ever be in, having to choose between loyalty to a sibling and loyalty to a spouse. Charles and Anne have always had a close relationship, built on decades of shared duty and mutual respect. Anne stepped up for Charles during his cancer treatment in 2024, taking on several engagements he could not attend and providing visible stability for an institution that needed it. He owes her a great deal, but Camilla is his wife, and her daughter is now facing legal proceedings driven by his own sister's insistence. There was no clean way through it. Palace advisors and courtiers scrambled behind the scenes to find a way to manage the fallout. Internal pressure was applied to bring the matter to a quiet resolution before it became public. But Anne had made her position clear from the start. She was not pursuing this matter out of spite or personal animosity toward Laura. She was doing it because she believed, with the full force of her convictions, that the rules protecting royal residences existed for serious reasons. They were not suggestions. They were not subject to modification based on who had broken them, and no amount of diplomatic pressure from within the family was going to change her view on that. The legal process, once begun, took on a momentum of its own. Lawyers were engaged and documentation was prepared. The machinery of formal legal action, once set in motion, is not easily stopped, and the people within the palace who had hoped to contain the matter quickly found that containment was no longer entirely in their hands. What had started as an unexpected visit to a Scottish Highland estate had become something that would require courts, lawyers, and formal proceedings to resolve, with all the exposure and scrutiny that came with it. A family fracture. Laid bare court cases have a way of bringing things to the surface that might otherwise remain buried for years. What the formal legal proceedings between Princess Anne and Laura Lopes revealed was not simply the story of one woman entering a private estate without permission. It was a window into the complex, unresolved fault lines that run through the heart of the British royal family, fault lines that have existed for decades, and that the institution has never quite found a way to fully seal. The Balmoral incident became a moment that forced all of those tensions into the open at once. At the center of it all is the question of belonging. Laura Lopes has spent her entire adult life occupying a space that has no clean definition. She is the daughter of the Queen, but she is not a royal. She attends significant family events, but holds no official role. She is close enough to the institution to feel its gravitational pull, but distant enough from it to have no formal standing within it. This kind of position, where someone is neither fully inside nor fully outside, creates pressures that are hard to manage and easy to misread. It produces a kind of familiarity with royal life that can, in the wrong circumstances, blur the lines between access and authorization. The legal confrontation with Princess Anne exposed this issue in the most public and damaging way possible. It made plain that being Queen Camilla's daughter does not carry automatic rights within the royal family's most protected spaces. It demonstrated that proximity to power is not the same as being granted that power's privileges. For Laura, a woman who had always managed to stay out of trouble and out of the headlines, this was a very unwanted kind of publicity. For the institution, it raised questions about how the boundaries around non-working relatives of the royal family are defined and communicated. For Camilla, the fallout was personal, in ways that went far beyond the legal. She had worked for 20 years to earn her place within the Windsor family, surviving public hostility, press cruelty, and the long shadow of Princess Diana to become a queen who was genuinely liked and respected. Her children had been cautiously welcomed into the edges of that world, attending major events, being included without being given formal titles or responsibilities. The legal action against Laura threatened to drag the sense of acceptance that had been so carefully cultivated. It put Camilla in the position of having to defend her daughter to the very family she had fought so hard to join. Princess Anne's relationship with Camilla has always been more complicated than the public image of a unified royal family suggests. There is respect between them, and Anne has publicly supported her sister-in-law on multiple occasions. But Anne also carries her own history with the Parker Bowles family. Long before any of the Charles-Camilla saga became public, Anne and Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's first husband, were reportedly involved with each other in their younger years. The web of personal history between these families is layered and tangled in ways that go back generations. The legal case did not create tensions that were not already there, buried beneath years of private disagreements, unspoken frustrations, and carefully managed public appearances. Those fractures had existed long before any documents were filed or any hearings were scheduled. What the case did was bring those hidden issues into a formal setting where they could no longer be ignored or managed behind closed doors. It provided a structured and unavoidable platform for conflicts to surface, giving long-standing divisions a visible, undeniable form. For King Charles, watching his sister and his wife's family in formal legal conflict was an experience that combined personal pain with institutional anxiety. He had already been dealing with a royal family under strain, with his own health concerns, the continued complications of Harry and Meghan's absence from royal duties, and the pressure of managing a modern monarchy in a world that increasingly questioned its relevance. The last thing he needed was a court case that painted the family as bitterly divided and willing to use the legal system against its own people. The optics were difficult to manage, and every attempt to make them better seemed only to make them worse. The case also reignited broader public conversation about where non-royal relatives of the royal family stand in relation to the institution. Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes have always existed in a kind of constitutional gray area. They have no titles, no official duties, and no formal standing, but they have access to the family's private life, they attend royal events, and they are, in every meaningful personal sense, part of the family. The Balmoral case forced a reckoning with what that informal membership actually means in legal terms. It turned out to mean considerably less than some had assumed. What the fallout ultimately revealed was not simply a family argument made formal. It revealed a royal institution still working out, often painfully and imperfectly, how to navigate the gap between the people who belong to it by blood and duty, and the people who belong to it only by marriage and feeling. Princess Anne, in her uncompromising way, drew a line that had always been there, but had never been quite so clearly marked. Whether the family will recover from what that line exposed, and what it cost those on either side of it, is a question that the palace will be quietly managing for a very long time to come. What are your thoughts on how this case affects the royal family's image? Do you think Laura Lopes' connection to Camilla gives her any form of access to royal properties without permission?